episode of the Urban Garden 2020. So I'm looking out across the yard, looking out into some of our potted plants and vegetables, and then our raised bed. And we've been transplanting this morning and moving some things around. So I'll go through, show you guys what I'm working on and what all we've got going on. So here we go. Let's go look at it. All right, guys. So here we have a couple of tomato plants that we've already transplanted, and this is our Parker Whopper tomato, and this over here is just a Better Boy tomato. And I've gotten about 10 5-gallon buckets, and as you can see, there's still dirt on the edges. I just finished transplanting these guys, and when you plant in containers, make do with what you have. You don't always have to go out and buy, fabric pots or planting pots. I got these used 5-gallon buckets. They were already rinsed out from a guy that got hundreds of them. I got them for like $2 a piece. So I got 10 of them for $20. So that was a lot cheaper than going through and buying, you get like 5 or so fabric pots that are 5 gallons for, around the same price. So all I did was I took and I marked me a line. I don't know if you can see it, right around the bottom, all the way around. I drilled me holes every couple of inches just to allow some drainage. I did come up about 1 inch from the bottom just so there would be some moisture holding in the bottom, but I did drill one small hole in the very bottom just so there's not sitting water, but it should prevent the water from just all running out and slow it down so that the roots can soak up as much as they need. And I did the same thing over here. So I'll kind of come over here and show you what I did. So I just took a Sharpie marker. Let's see, you can get a pack of Sharpies, various colors for pretty cheap. So I just take and I just use my finger as a guide, and I come up, and that's about 1.5 inches or so, and you can see makes a pretty straight line across. And then I just take my drill. I've got a small bit in there, and I just go through and I'll mark every couple of inches with just a dot. And you can take a tape measure if you want it super uniform, or you can just eyeball it like I've done. And I go through, drill my holes, and I'll put one hole in the very bottom, the same size, fill it up with dirt about 1/3 to 1/2. Then I'll transplant from my small container into the larger one. So it's a pretty simple process. Not much to it other than taking your small plant, you pull it out and you put it in the container, and that's the finished product. So I've got 4 pepper plants here. I'll probably transplant into there. We've got some large pumpkin plants over here that we're going to put in the ground. I've been moving some of the tomatoes, artichokes, what else we have, okra and whatnot. I took several of those and moved to the raised bed. So we'll go through and look at it. Oh, I'll show you the little round bed here. And the sunflowers have, they've just taken off. I mean, they are just growing. We've got our squash plant here. That's a squash. I think that may be squash, I'm not sure. I know I put a few squash plants in here. That actually may be sunflower. But this tomato, this is our Cherokee, purple Cherokee tomato. It's, it's sprouted out. I'm gonna have to get something and start, I put this up as a guide for it to kind of lean against, but it's done split into 3 main branches, well, almost 4 from the main stalk. So I'm gonna have to stake that up somehow. Over here, that's our other squash right there. A lot of sunflowers, just some sprinkled in, some I planted. I started in the seed tray. This right here is another Better Boy tomato, and it's not quite as big as the Cherokee purple. It was a little behind it when I got it, but it's coming on along now. I've got this right here to kind of help hold it up and steady it until it gets on up. But you can see there are some corn stalks coming up also. Not really sure how they're gonna do, but they'll kind of compete with the sunflowers for light. there's plenty of fertilizer in this dirt in the ground here, so I'm not really worried about nutrients. But this is the round bed, and I just go through and pluck off any plants that I see that aren't plants, that they're weeds. But we'll go down here to the raised bed, and even though it's, almost midday and the sun's out, mosquitoes are just eating me alive. And I put some off on, or something. That was a not off, cutter. So, and it still did not, I don't know, it hadn't slowed them down. They're eating me up, so I'm not going to be out here too much longer before I go back in and put something on. And I've got the bug zapper over there, but evidently the mosquitoes aren't attracted to it. But anywho, so we've got a squash there, a squash here, there. You see the corn just sprouting up in random places. This right here is an artichoke, I think. This right here is an eggplant there, eggplant there. So I've got probably 4 artichokes, 4 eggplants over here, another couple of eggplants right there and there, a little tomato, a couple of tomato plants over there and here, and then our beans. I got the string right here actually out of the trash can at work, and after we got done using it, and just kind of repurposed it here as runners for my beans. So as you can see, I haven't really trained them or anything. I did move this one over a little bit because it was growing on the tomato, but I redirected it, and you can see the beans are just growing up there. These tomatoes are doing pretty well in this raised bed. They've all got little yellow flowers on them, so that means they're in bloom. And the soil here, not too happy with, but it is what it is at this point. So for this year, it's going to be, there's a lot of compost underneath on the very bottom, probably about 8 inches down. I don't want to come over here and put a second bed in right here. But as you can see, everything's coming on up. We'll walk on around here and look at the blackberry and the fig tree. Blackberry bush and fig tree. And you can kind of get a picture of how everything's going. Yeah, the blackberry's got all kinds of little blooms on it. So there she is. And she's done started on the fence here and running down the fence rail. So we'll trim off some of this tree above it just to get it a little more sunlight. And then the fig tree is really budded out, and it should be putting out little figs before too long. The blackberries and the figs, you have to keep an eye out, because when they're ripe, the birds will swoop in like the day before you're thinking you're going to pick them, and the birds will come in and they'll just be gone. So the same thing over here with our mulberry tree. It's loaded down with little green mulberries. You can see them there. There we go, focused in. And it's just the whole tree is loaded with them. Same thing with these. They'll ripen, and within a few days, the birds will just eat them up. One word of advice or caution: if you're looking at planting a mulberry, you may want to plant it in an area a little off the beaten path, because if you have concrete, if you have vehicles parked near it, these berries are like a blackberry. They're going to ripen and drop to the ground, and then they're going to stain wherever they drop. So just if you put it like this one's in the corner of the yard over here, well away from anything, and they're just going to fall on the ground and be fine. But what the birds don't eat. Then over here, this right here is another little pumpkin. There's some weeds all around it. I'll thin out, but it's growing up pretty well. Yeah, just for sticking it in the ground here, it's doing very well. And I don't want to pull too much of this because there's a pile of poison oak all in that. So, and we'll just come over here and revisit our little pear, the pear tree that we've got. Of course, that's a pear tree. That is a pear tree. There's a pear. No, that's not a pear, but that is. And I think there were 2 pears back here last year I saw. But anywho, oh, it's right over there. That's a pear right there. A huge pear tree, actually. So, yeah, this little tree is growing. I'm having to swat the mosquitoes away. Our honeysuckle vine that we just set out here in the planter has really taken off. It's here with this, I think that's a morning glory vine there. But as you can see, the honeysuckle is starting to put out some little flowers, and before long, oh, there's some right there. It's already bloomed out. So that's what we're looking like today in the garden. And you can see in the front, the banana trees have just come full out and everything. It's the work time of the year for the yard, just keeping everything cut back and maintained so you don't get overgrowth and your undesirables or everything else is kind of just under control enough to keep the ones that aren't just super have a lot of super growth or anything, just keep them all maintained and in check so that everything kind of grows equally. But yeah, I'm really impressed with this. Of course, if you know, I don't know if I posted a video, when these trees lose their leaves, it just covers the yard in leaves. So I rake them all up. I actually rake them all around this tree and I burn them. You can kind of see the char on the tree. So that adds, throw some sticks in there too, any limbs that fall, burn all those. So that creates wood ash, leaf ash, and some biochar, and just adds nutrients to the soil. And then that obviously will leach out and run into the yard. But so far, I put some soil acidifier and some triple 13, so that'll kind of keep the pH up a little bit, a little more acidic for the tomatoes because they're acid-loving plants. So, yeah, that's what we're looking like. And yeah, mosquitoes, I don't know if you can see that, but they are just eating me up. So I'm going to go find some more insect repellent and come back out here and finish our planters. And I'm probably going to trim this rose bush back. I've got the German Queen tomato here. She's doing super well. And, I got a couple of cuttings from her right here. And I was going to show you guys this because, let's see, which one is it? I moved them out into a slightly more sunny spot. If you can see right here, there's a little bit of a root poking out. And, right there, you can see these little white string-like features poking out. Those are roots coming from the tomato. So this one, I think I saw one earlier. Anywho, these were planted together, so they shouldn't be far behind each other. So being that there are roots coming out, they're seeking, moisture and nutrients. So it won't be long until this bad dude or girl is ready to be put in the ground somewhere or in a larger container. So yeah, we've got our other tomatoes here and peppers, our habaneros, the wax peppers, the pepperoncinis, the carnival sweet peppers. We just have a ton of stuff to put out into larger containers. Most all the peppers I'm just going to put into larger plastic containers. Some of the tomatoes I'm either going to put in the ground or put into the 5-gallon buckets because they do like a little more space for the roots to grow. The peppers, they're just slightly less vigorous. They're not quite as fast growing as the tomatoes. Obviously a pepper plant is technically a perennial, and depending on the area and climate that you're in, but here if we move them inside for the winter, they'll be a perennial. If not, and you leave them outside or they're in the ground outside, they're going to die. But they'll put off a lot of peppers until then. And some of our peppers have come alive, and I don't really know how. I think I just threw some old tomatoes in some of these planters, and that's a tomato, that's a tomato. These are just store-bought varieties, so I'm not real sure what they were. But there's one over in the banana tree. It's just sprouted out. The banana has some suckers here. Some are new banana trees, some are suckers. The other one in the smaller container is too. I'm going to transplant those into a larger container. These pumpkins here, yeah, they're going to have to be moved into something bigger, and so is that hydrangea bush. But anywho, a wasp just tried to attack me, or it flew near me, which is the same thing, but had to swat him away, and I'll get a tennis racket and take care of him later. But yeah, so this is what we're looking like. Transplanting stuff, working in our raised bed, working with our planters, and getting everything into something a little bigger to get through the growing season. Alright guys, well, remember, if you watched the video this far, go on and like, subscribe, share the video, and help us grow the channel. We've added several new viewers. If you have any questions or comments about transplanting or any of that, just leave them in the comment section. It's pretty simple, especially tomatoes. I don't know, to me they're one of the easiest vegetables to grow. You just stick them in some rich soil, keep them watered, well-drained soil, and they just grow. I've got them in these 5-gallon buckets and they're just taking off, and they were in little small just planter leftover buckets from a couple of years ago before that. So yeah, that's what we're looking like. A lot of these we started from seeds we bought in the mail. This year hopefully we'll procure some of our own seeds from some of the fruit that we grow. But anyway, you guys stay safe, keep digging it, enjoy the spring, and let me know if you guys have any comments for videos, any questions, or anything like that. Thanks guys, be safe.